speaker is Dr. Gloria G. Gloria's going to be talking about some of the issues that are going on here within Scaminaci County. Painful issues, I know.
Painful issues, and you want to know about rules not being enforced? Try 17 rules for 7 years in a black community, because they have no empowerment. And we don't see any white faces in our diversities, in our minority communities, helping them. You need me to speak up? That's amazing. Okay. I was pretty, okay. And the communities that I'm in, and Tony knows, Mary knows, many of y'all know, yeah, I've got a big mouth too. And I've been thrown out of a meeting or two because ordinances are not being enforced because of corporations and the elected officials have them in their back pocket. And I'll tell you where they're not being enforced. In diverse, minority, very minority, mostly African American communities. Look back there. 8 active landfills in a community that the ribbon was cut by President Jimmy Carter. Codes were changed so these people could have these dumps in these people's backyards. It was the first African American suburb in this county, and now it's just an environmental wasteland because nobody came to the table. Nobody. And once we got organized and people like me went into their communities and got to know them and they got to trust me, they gathered. And it took us 5 years to get one dump closed. That's literally in the backyards of these people's communities. And it makes me furious when I go, okay, the mullet's bad. You don't have to eat it every day. The communities I'm looking at, they're using the bay and everything that comes out of it to feed their families. I started looking at environmental racism in '93 when I was at Florida A&M University. And my PhD is in community activism and small networks. And this is how it started, with women at the table, mothers at the table, because their children were getting sick. But you know those people, as Lois Gibbs said, she says that she's basically the mother of Superfund sites. She said, oh, those poor people. And then she realized it was her. And when you realize that those dumps are right on Marcus Bayou and then feeds right into Perdido, those dumps are impacting you too. And that flood in 2012, all of them busted. They rushed down, they went into Marcus Point, they went into Carpenter Lake, and that's what broke the levee. And you know what we found? So much medical waste. Medical waste. Medical waste. Medical waste. That's what's in Carpenter Lake. That's what you should have gone to see when it was dry. That's going into the Gulf. That's going into the Bay. And it's starting right there. But nobody cares because it's a black community. They don't have any empowerment at the county or the city. The Tanyard, where I live now, you want to see some unenforcement? Not one fence was around that big hole. And that's a community of children and elderly. Not one fence. It took us 6 weeks to get one safety fence around that place. Why? It's a black community. So, when you're looking at these issues, find out where they start and who they're impacting. Because these people are sick, and they don't have the political power, and they don't have, you know, we all go, oh, well, it's on the web. They don't do web. They do front porch. They do churches. They do picnics. And that's where we have to go and say, what can I do to help you? Because I'm white. And somehow they'll listen to me for a minute. Not me anymore. But I don't care. I still go. And I tell them they're racist. I tell it to their face. Because that wouldn't have happened in your community. And let me tell you the zoning on that. All of this zoning got changed and didn't tell anybody in the communities. But can that community get a zoning for a grocery store? Nope. So now they're a food desert. These people are sick. We lost 5 last week. 5. Because of the H2S in their air, in the soil, and all kinds of contaminants in their water.
5 what? People?
People.
5 people.
Who got out in Michigan and found a lot? I'm just curious.
Who, in Flint?
Yeah.
Well, people came up. It was an investigation. I wasn't there, so I can't answer to
I'm
that.
just curious.
Okay. I'm answering what's in my hood. When we demanded a health report because of 2 other landfills, the Sulphly Field and the Coyote Field, because they hadn't done a report. They finally did a report. And I took those 3 reports from Coyote, from Sulphly Field, to Wedgwood. Everything that was in Wedgwood was in all of these times 10. But over here it wasn't a problem. It really wasn't impacting those people. It took us years to get one H2S device, so people knew that they shouldn't be outside. Children were not allowed to go play outside because of the smell at our 4 schools that are right down the road from there. 4 public schools. Who do they serve? Disenfranchised communities. Keith Wilkinson, it was too expensive to put an H2S device at Longview Elementary School.
It could have been a STEM project.
Well, too expensive. And while at Sulphly and at Coyote, the H2S level was set at one place, for the Wedgwood community, it was 10 times that. 10 times. Even though the Florida DEP and the EPA said, no, those numbers are way too high. But no enforcement. No enforcement. It was on fire for a week before anybody got out there, and it took another week to get it out. It's in their backyard, right there. There is a fence separating these families and their homes. They may not be like your homes, but they're their homes. And they were a nice community out there at one time. These were retired military that served their country. This was their American dream. And this county killed it for the sake of some money. And here's the real gig. We're paying $2.8 million to clean up this one landfill.
That's right.
What was it, South
I don't know how much softly filled it
I
was.
think it was $1 million.
2.8 million to clean up this landfill. And the owners get to keep it.
Wait a minute, they get to keep it?
They get to keep it.
For what purpose? Whatever they want to do?
Tony, it's Scott Miller, his cousins, from Gates all the way to Ingram. It's just white male privilege.
Wow.
And it's money, and I don't know what they think they're gonna drink. Because we all gotta drink the same thing, and you better look up there and you see what's coming down this way. Now, we know we have to have landfills. That's not the question. But we need to make landfills better productively and make sure that they're enforced regularly. And we, us white folks in the room, need to be at the table with these minorities, not to show them how to do it, but to have their back. Because nobody gets out alive. I'll just leave it at that.